Oh, it's that time of the year again, and I can tell you who's not happy about it, and it's this guy. Let's get into the shop and get warmed up. Well guys, one thing is for certain. Winter is here, it's ice cold, there's snow everywhere, and this guy is not having it. But regardless, 2024 is over. We have a ton to talk about, so let's get right into today's video. What is going on, Brash Garage? It is 2025, and that means one thing. 2024 is over, and we accomplished a lot with this car in the year of 2024. To be honest, it's a close call. I feel like 2024 was the most pivotal year for this channel, for sure. And I think we probably did the most building on this car that we have ever done in 2024. Granted, going back to about 2021, we did do the whole B16A engine swap and a bunch of fun things like that. But this year is one to rival that for sure. With the full custom top mount turbo kit, all the fabrication we've done, this car has come a long way in 2024, and 2025 holds a bright, bright future. A lot of lifestyle changes for me personally, a lot of changes with the channel, the cars, and everything of the sort. But right now, with the new year starting, I want to take a look back and reflect at what we did in 2024 and see just how much we accomplished on this car and talk about all the milestones the channel hit. So let's take a look back to the very beginning of 2024 when the build plan with this car was to use our B18B, and we went on the path of refreshing it to only find out we're still sticking with the B16A. Let's take a look. What's going on, boys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we got some exciting things going down on the Civic. It is not going to need an inspection. Therefore, all that stuff we were going to do to make this thing lame to pass doesn't have to be done anymore, so we can focus up on other things such as getting this turboed with this engine we have sitting in the corner. This is our B18B with a built head. If you haven't seen that video, there should be a card up here. I did a video finding out that my B18B that I bought in this car over 5 years ago, that's right, I bought this EG with that B18 in it, with a blown up transmission and a bad throwout bearing, bad input shaft, the whole nine. This car originally came with that engine, and I never knew that that engine had a built head. When I took it out and further looked into it, it was clear to see that someone had been boosting it. The block shaved down for an eBay turbo kit to have the turbo housing sit there. Has head studs, and I think it has valve springs, retainers, valves, all that as well. So regardless, even if it doesn't have a built head, it's studded and more ready for boost than that 16 is. So we need to start getting this car ready to get that engine in it again so we can boost. So as we can see from those few clips, we started off with the B18B project. Everything kind of flopped with that in the sense that the internals of the motor are just tired. It's high mileage, and this B16 that was in the car is fresh, like absolutely fresh, compression checked, clean, 180 across the board, and everything was just set up already with this car to have the B16, so I thought, why not just turbo the B16. Yes, the B18 had head studs, and in theory, it sounded like a better motor to boost, but with it being a lot more high mileage than this B16 and us only pushing 8 to 10 pounds of boost, I figured it was probably better suited for content, the channel, and how long it was gonna take to build this car to just chuck the turbo kit on the B16. And that brings us to building this B16 for boost and getting the turbo kit installed. So let's take a look back and see everything we did to get this B16 boosted in my EG hatch. We have got lots to talk about. Let's rewind a little bit. We have a lot to go over regarding the turbo kit and ultimately what engine it's going to be on going in this car. If you guys have been following, you would know that we've been kind of building up this B18B because it has head studs already, and in theory it's ready for boost. But the problem being with this engine is we replaced pretty much everything exterior. Like, we got a new rear main seal. We were going to extract this bolt, do new cam caps, new cam seal. We got a fresh intake manifold, gaskets everywhere. We got the fresh turbo kit. We got the fresh timing belt on it. cleaned up everything, but that's not really the issue. We've refreshed everything on the outside of this engine. And the thing that's not so great with this engine is you can refresh all the stuff on the outside that you want, but the inside is still absolutely filthy. I mean, it is just all gunked up everywhere you look. And when we had taken the oil pan off to see if it had a built bottom end, it was just as gunky down there as it is up here. So unfortunately, I believe that this engine might be a little bit more tired than what we were initially anticipating. And because of that, today I'm going to be mocking up the turbo manifold and the turbo on the engine that's in the car, our Civic Type R swap from back in the day, the B16A swap, because that engine is fresh, it's brand new. If you remember a couple years ago, if you've been a long time subscriber, when we put that engine in the car and took this engine out, because this engine is what came in the car when I bought it like 6 years ago, and we had taken this out and put in the NA B16A, and when we had the valve cover and everything stripped down off the B16A, it looked brand new. There was not a speck of carbon, none of this was black, it was all shiny aluminum, and everything is completely fresh. I don't want to be the heartbreaker in today's video, but it really just is what it is. Let's start stripping the turbo kit off this and putting it on the B16 that's in the car, and then today we can finally see what a top mount turbo kit looks like on a B series in our EG hatch. But no matter what engine we picked to boost this car, there is a million pieces to a turbo kit, including intercooler, fittings, fueling, blow-off valves, wastegates, manifolds. I mean, a turbo project requires a lot of parts that you don't need for an NA build. So regardless of B16 or B18, we had to go through the whole rabbit hole of getting this actual car ready to handle boost. And that starts with installing our eBay intercooler and finding some fittings that proved rather tricky to find because we ended up ordering some European parts. And unfortunately, where I'm from in Canada, those BSP fittings, they just aren't around here. Let's go take a look at all the struggles we had finding those fittings, getting the intercooler on this car, and then let's talk about it. Whew. We got all the parts in to finish this car, literally. Let's go check them out. All right, guys, and I am not playing around when I mean like we got all of our parts. This big box here houses the intercooler piping, the couplers, the clamps, the blow-off valve, and the intercooler. And this little box, if you can't tell by the tape there, we got our goodies from Garage 16. This box I'm really excited about. But let's put that off to the side and go through everything we got for this car. So we got our intercooler kit, kind of a piece together kit. Like we got some RDT motoring, couplers, we got a whole sack of clamps here. We got all of our piping, which actually does not look half bad at all. There's two pieces that are skinnier than the rest. I think that's just for clearance issues on this cars, but we got our whole intercooler kit. It did come with this HKS style SQV, like sequential blow off. It's got a little purple piece down there, kind of fresh, kind of fancy, but it's just an eBay blow off. I still don't know if we're gonna run a blow off or just send it. It is a cheap turbo and I don't want to create a bunch of smoke by blowing it up, but this is our intercooler kit. I want to get mocking this up right away to see what I need to do or cut or make to make this work. So this is my main focus right now, but let's take a peek at what we got from Garage 16. All right, so here is all the exciting stuff. Let's go one by one. First things first, we got our Speed Factory sandwich plate, and you know, I can't lie, I'm a little disappointed with this. This was not cheap, and it's literally just the assembly. It doesn't come with the Dash 6 fitting to plug or run anything from the Dash 6 port, and it doesn't come with any of the 1/8 NPT fittings. So you're literally just spending a shit ton of money on a piece of milled out metal. Moving on, just got another AN wrench. This isn't actually from Garage 16. Mine just broke. It's from Evil Energy. It's who we use all of our AN lines and stuff for, so I finally just got an AN wrench. Then we got our turbo guard right here, 3-inch black with the red Turbo Guard logo right there. Sick unit, so we don't have to run a filter. We got our Honda 4-bar map sensor, as you can see right there. So this will be able to read and register a shitload more boost than we're ever going to be running, especially with a stock motor. We have our Vibrant 5-bolt T3 T4 steel flange. This thing is thick, man. That's like 1/2 inch thick steel. It's heavy, absolute unit. Gonna get my fabricator to fab up a wicked downpipe with that unit. Then we have our hybrid racing fuel pump here, 335 liter per hour. You got the pump right here. Hybrid racing, 335 liter per hour. Now the only thing I don't have to finish this car, and it's related to fuel, is injectors. I'm buying some Bosch EV14 550cc's from Performance Fuel Injection Canada, and those will be in a little bit. So once I get the injectors, the car is done aside from a tune and fab work. Moving on to our last piece though, this is arguably the most exciting piece in here. This is our Go Fast Bits 44 mil V-band wastegate. And when I say this thing's big, man, this thing is big. Let's get this out on the table. Boom. This thing is an absolute monster. God damn. It fits. It freaking fits. And it's perfect. Hell yes. We're gonna be diving into basically our biggest problem, which is this wastegate. As you guys should know by now, I got this Go Fast Bits 44 mil V-band wastegate, and as you can see here, it came with 2 vacuum fittings, which is great and all, but these vacuum fittings are straight vacuum fittings. They're not right angle, which in theory should be okay, but when you have a top mount turbo, that the downpipe is going to be coming straight out here, there is simply not enough clearance between how far that these fittings stick up to this downpipe. The downpipe is literally going to run into these fittings. Like I couldn't even install my downpipe with these fittings on. So what I need to do is get right angle fittings for this, and what I ended up doing was I bought 1/8 NPT to barbed vacuum fittings that you can see right there on the turbo. I have one installed because we had drilled and tapped this for 1/8 NPT, and it works perfectly. It threads right in, it gets tight, and everything's good to go. And when I bought this wastegate, I didn't think too in depth about it, and I read the description, and the description said 1/8. Now I didn't really read too much further than 1/8, so I bought 1/8 NPT like everything else on this car is, so I could have a right angle vacuum fitting from the turbo to a right angle vacuum fitting on the wastegate. Now, the wastegate has 2 ports. The top port, since we're not running a boost controller, is venting to atmosphere, and the bottom port goes to the turbo. It goes from the compressor wheel to the bottom port of the wastegate. So, since I bought 1/8 NPT fittings, because I thought everything on this car was gonna be 1/8 NPT, turns out Go Fast Bits is like an Australian company, and they use British Standard Pipe Thread, BSP or BSPT, not NPT. So I bought these right angle 1/8 NPT fittings that went right into the turbo because, well, we tapped it to 1/8 NPT. And I went to go install it in the wastegate because I need them there as well. And it went about 2 threads in and jammed tight, and I'm like, hold up here, something ain't right, you know what I mean? Like this isn't right. It just threaded into the turbo, no problem. I thought maybe the second fitting I got had messed up thread, so I took the one out of the turbo, tried to put it in the wastegate, and what do you know, same thing, you get about a thread and a half, and it jams tight, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I would say my biggest hurdle with this car was finding all the auxiliary parts. Since I didn't just go on eBay or Rev9 or CX Racing and order a cheap turbo kit, I opted to piece one together. That means that I had to find all the fittings and everything necessary to do this on my own. From the oil restrictor plate, the feed line, the drain line, the fittings for the Speed Factory sandwich plate, the fittings for our European Go Fast Bits blow-off valve, vacuum lines, tees, and everything in between was all up to me. We ended up finding those BSP fittings. I had to order them. I believe it was from New Zealand, and they took almost a month to get here from eBay. all the way from New Zealand to Canada. But we ended up finding our BSP fittings right angle, and that is still what's in the wastegate right now, controlling our boost pressure source. And now with fittings and intercooler out of the way, this car didn't have an adequate cooling system to keep it cool with the forced induction. As we all know, Honda motors are high compression, and ideally when you boost a motor, you want that motor to be low compression. Well, we didn't have that liberty because we're not building a engine with low compression pistons and all those goodies. We have a stock Honda B16 A3 that's high compression from the factory. High compression motor plus boost is just going to equal heat, and we needed to try and manage that as best that we could. So we ended up opting out for a bigger Yonaka radiator, slim fans, coolant lines, heater core bypass. We replaced all the coolant fittings. So let's go ahead and check out all the clips of getting the new cooling system in this car to help it stay on the road for longer with forced induction. Sheesh. This is a really sick little rad. You got the slim fan on the back with the shroud. You pretty much need a shroud. Slim fans don't work great without them. Just like that, baby. Let's go. We have to go ahead, drain the coolant, take out the thermostat switch, the sending switch to the gauge, and the ECT switch. Replace all those, and while we're at it, I have a Gates Racing 170-degree thermostat, so hopefully it opens a bit colder. Then we can hook the fans up to the OEM wiring and see if they turn on by themselves. If they don't, I'm calling it there, and we're wiring it into a relay. Last night I had it just on my hot wire switch, so let's go ahead and jack up the car so we can start draining this coolant, and hopefully I can catch most of it. Well boys, I'm actually catching most of it. It's actually not coming out too bad, and thank God that this coolant doesn't stain the floor, so we should be good. All right boys, coolant is drained now. Now the two sensors I'm replacing today is this one, which is the engine coolant temp sensor right there. And then it's gonna be hard for you guys to see, but that sensor that's right back there, way tucked away in the way of everything, that's another one we're replacing. And the main one that got me to replace all of these, you guys really can't see it, but the thermostat is right down in there, and there is a sensor on the thermostat that we're going to be replacing, and that should be responsible for the fans not turning on, because when you disconnect that sensor and jump the plug that goes to the sensor, then the fans turn on no problem. So in theory, if I were to replace the thermostat sensor, then these fans should kick on by themselves. Here's the unit that came out, probably hasn't been replaced in 30 years, and then here is the unit going in. Same length, same thread pitch, yada yada, but this one is a little bit bigger nut than this one is, so we're gonna go ahead and find that, reinstall these, gonna use a bit of thread sealant, and we're all set. There's that freshie in there, you can see the fresh brass right there. Now we're gonna be moving on to this one right here. So what I'm gonna do is just unplug the VTEC solenoid, give us a little bit more room, unplug that, and then hopefully get another socket on there to turn that one off, and all should be well. Boys, my Gates Racing 170-degree thermostat did not come with a gasket. However, this one looks to be in quite good condition, so I'm just gonna quickly swap the gasket over. All right, boys, we have done it. A lot of struggle later, and it's super hard for you guys to see in there. Let me make it a little easier. We now have a new thermostat. Now, I just need to hook the ground up again, put the new sensor in, and then hook the connector back up to the sensor. And I have the sensor right here ready to go, thread sealed and all. Boom, and just like that, all 3 coolant sensors are replaced and a thermostat. And now that our cooling system is sorted, it was far from over. This was really just the beginning. The next part, which is arguably the best part of this build, we had to take our car over to the fabricator so he could make us this 3-inch downpipe and full 3-inch exhaust. Not only did he make the exhaust for us, he also welded up some of the eBay intercooler pipes that didn't fit. Surprise, surprise, am I right? Regardless, let's go head over to my fabricator shop and see what we did for fabrication on this car to make it better for Boost. And after a 14-hour day of straight grinding at my fabricator shop, the whole exhaust and intercooler piping was done on this car. It was officially ready for Boost, minus a few last parts. We have the intercooler, we have the fittings, we have the manifold, we have the turbo on the car. We have our bung welded from our fabricator for an oil drain. Now it's time for the final stretch of this build, which brings us to being able to put the power down to the ground, a fuel system to support the higher horsepower and torque numbers it's going to be putting out, and of course, spark plugs. We needed colder spark plugs than what we ran NA to be able to make sure our spark is on point, this engine's rotating and getting up in RPM a lot quicker, and it's basically doubling the horsepower and torque figures that it came with stock. So to be able to keep up with that, we need to fuel it and we need the spark to be on point. But with fueling and with spark on point, as you guys will see coming up, we needed to be able to put this power down to the ground. Front wheel drive, light car, a lot of horsepower, a lot of torque for this chassis. It's going to want to torque steer you off the road. So let's take a look at these next few steps we did in 2024 to be able to make all that happen. Okay boys, so we got our Precision Works traction bar, formerly known as our boys at Private Label MFG. If you don't know, now you know. We got a ton of their parts on the Civic, and we are going to be using one of their parts for the turbo build as well. And you guys will find that out real soon. And here we have it. How rad does this look under the car? You got this one, you got the one down there, and then you have the big bar coming all the way up. This is going to greatly help with wheel hop, torque steer, things like that. Since these bushings won't be flexing as much or at all really because it's all braced and supported now, you won't be running through as many bushings when you're making high horsepower either. Traction bar is a definite must do in my book if you have a Civic, especially a turbo one that's going to be making some crazy power. All right guys, so here we have some BKR 7s. You can go 7s or 8s. I was able to get the 7s a little bit quicker, so I went with the 7s. Open them up, and we have to gap them to that 0.002. So we're gonna get that gapped and see how we do. So these plugs come gapped at 0.028, and the tuner wants 0.02, but these are super fragile plugs, so I think I might just check all of them to make sure they're all 0.28, and I might just leave them there. It's kind of tough to gap iridium plugs being how fragile they are. You can do it, but that's already a really tight tolerance being 0.28, so the lowest it can go is 0.20. So I might just leave them there. I'm going to check all the gaps and we'll come back. Okay, all the plugs are the same, gapped at about 0.028. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and leave them there. That should be fine for our application. Let's go quickly install these, put that back together, and move on to the fuel pump. Spark plugs installed, time for a fuel pump. Okay boys, well it's like pretty well impossible for me to show you in there, but right on top is a banjo bolt and right beside is a hose clamped hose. Take those off, take off all the 10 mils there, and then the pump and sending unit will come out, and then we'll put it on the bench, install the new pump, and we'll be good to go. Fuel pump out. The thing that stuck me the most is that return line right there with that clamp on it. It must have got seized or something and I ended up having to break it off to get it out, but tank looks good, fuel looks good. Pump is out right here. Now it's time to replace the pump and the sock. All right boys, and just like that, our hybrid racing fuel pump is installed. There it is right there. We got that little ring on the sock. That was probably honestly the hardest part, was getting that reseated. It's almost like it's a little too big for the space in between the actual sock pickup and that little nipple there. But we were able to get it on. Hopefully it should stay on and not go anywhere. Now I'm gonna install this back in the car. It's super simple. One clip here, one clip on the car, banjo bolt, washer on the bottom, washer on top, and then the fuel line. And I'm going to use one of these new clamps for this fuel line in the car, and we should be good. We'll pick it back up when we go to fire it up with the new fuel pump installed. And just like that, fuel pump is back in the car. There we have it. So you got that banjo bolt, hose clamp, clip 1 and clip 2. Battery's connected. Let's see if we hear anything. Fingers crossed, fellas. Fingers crossed. Holy. That sounds a lot different than the last one. It's not so much of a as it is a whoosh. Dang. All right. Fire it up. Sick. All right, boys, injector harness is off. Now we can take these adapter clips here and put them on the factory wiring. Just like that. They clip right into place. Now that the fuel rail is loose and ready to come off, opening up our new injectors. These are Bosch EV14s, 550cc. Should do the trick. We're not looking to make the most crazy power numbers, just right around like 275 to 300 or so. Now that we have those out, let's go ahead, pop the fuel rail off, pull the injectors, get the spacers in there, and we should be set. All right, fellas, injectors are in. Jumpers are on. Now I'm gonna connect the fuel rail, jumpers, and all should be well, boys. And now that we have got all that done, this car is basically ready for a first start. Of course, at this point, we now need to add our oil, check for leaks, add our coolant, check for leaks, because after all, there's new sandwich plate on the car, oil filter, everything's plugged and plumbed to feed this turbo with the oil that it needs to stay cool, not overheat and blow up in our face. We also added the whole new cooling system to be able to keep the ECTs cool. all the fittings and everything in between. We are so close. This is the last thing we need to do. Let's take a peek at the first start of this car and share some excitement that I felt when doing that, because honestly, it was a huge relief. After months and months of grinding, going to the fabricator, ordering parts, figuring out I don't have the parts that I need because I was piecing this together, we were finally at the final step. The turbo's on, the intercooler's on, the new cooling system's on, the cooling system sensors, everything in between. Vacuum is plumbed, oil is fed, oil pan's back on the car, everything is sealed, and this is where things get exciting. Let's head on over to our first start and our very first session of street tuning, where we ran into a huge issue because I foolishly forgot to install a pivotal piece on this car when we left our fabricators, and it turned into be quite a headache until I figured out just what was going wrong. Knock on wood, boys. Let's go fire this fucking thing up. I've just got to get the O2 sensor to heat up. We've got fuel pressure, everything else looks good. Knock on wood for me, boys. Coolant is in there, ready to get bled. Oil is in. Let's just quickly take another peek. Right on the money. Literally perfect. There is going to be a little bit of smoke, so don't mind that. All the fingerprints on the new exhaust stuff has to burn off because there's oil in your hands, but let's start this thing. It's not as loud as I was thinking it would be at idle. Today is the big day. We're gonna try and get the Civic tuned today. Fingers crossed, hopefully everything goes well. So there we have it. We thought we were at the end. The whole turbo kit that I pieced together is now on the car. Our first start went great. No coolant leaks, no oil leaks. And then we went out for our first tuning session. And although in theory it was a successful tuning session, it wasn't really a success at all. I was aiming for 10 pounds with this car. I don't have a boost controller, so we're running only on gate. And I have the 10-pound spring in the gate, and for whatever reason, the car was only making 5 pounds. I initially thought that was due to the intercooler piping, so I redid all the hose clamps, I redid all the couplers, I sprayed them with hairspray and made sure they stuck. I left them overnight before I fired it up again. I reseated the blow-off valve and the O-ring. I checked all my vacuum lines, went back out, and the car still refused to make over 5 pounds. At this point, I'm thinking, what the heck is going on and what could it be? It turns out that the biggest pain in this car ended up being the Go Fast Bits wastegate I ordered. Albeit a fantastic product, and Go Fast Bits is an awesome company. But with the BSP fittings taking almost a month to ship here from New Zealand after I couldn't even find them on Amazon. Bezos didn't even have my BSP fittings. They had them on American Amazon, but not Canadian Amazon. So after a month of waiting for that, the fabricator and I ended up taking it off to weld up a 1.5-inch dump tube. This isn't recirculated. In hindsight, I probably should have got it recirculated. It's just freaking obnoxious. But we ended up taking it off, and there's a nice little piece in a wastegate called a fire ring. That basically seals the wastegate valve shut so that it can open only when it's supposed to, when it reaches that spring pressure of 10 pounds. Well, I kind of gave up on chasing the boost leak, and I went to go heat wrap the downpipe and the dump tube, because although we put a new cooling system in the car, on hot 30 degrees Celsius summer days, blasting down back roads, it was still getting hot. It was manageable. You could get off the gas and let it cool down and still be able to drive just fine, but you wouldn't be able to do boost pull after boost pull. So I'm like, next best thing is going to be heat wrapping the downpipe and the dump tube. Right now, I can't really fit a turbo blanket on this because it rests up against the manifold and everything is so tight here, it tries to bend my dipstick and things out of the way. So I opted to not run a blanket. We tried to do a heat wrap, and that is where I found our boost pressure problem. I ended up taking off the wastegate because I needed to get this downpipe out. This downpipe kind of swings in and around in a funky way to make it work without overheating the slave cylinder or being too close to the radiator. So when I took the wastegate off, I'm looking at the bottom of it and there is an opening around the valve. And I'm like, weird, did the valve or the spring get stuck and it's compressed up a little bit? So I went and I opened the Go Fast Bits box and lo and behold, a fire ring is sitting right there. I took it, I placed it right in and it perfectly filled up the gap. I heat wrapped it all, reinstalled it, went out for a drive and instantly made over 5 pounds of boost. This is when I called the tuner back up and we got it retuned. Lo and behold, now we're making 8 pounds of boost. I still don't know where the other 2 pounds is going. I have a hunch it's coming from the blow-off valve, but that doesn't really matter for our 2025 plans. I'll get into that in a little bit. But regardless, our issue is finally solved. Tuning attempt number 2, and I just stumbled upon our issue this whole time when I was literally just taking it off to heat wrap it. I wasn't even taking it off to try and find the leak we're chasing. I simply just took it off to heat wrap it, and I found our boost leak issue. Now, even to this present day, that's what it was, and we are making 8 pounds, right around the 300 wheel horsepower, and this car is boatloads of fun. But I tell you, that wastegate from having the British standard pipe thread fittings, and then me forgetting to put the fire ring in it, and it wasn't even like that initially. I put the fire ring in it. It was in there when we went to the tuner. We put it back on without the fire ring, and about a week later, my tuner calls me. He's like, sends me a picture. He's like, is this yours? And I'm like, yeah, I think that is. And I thought it was a weld-on flange because it kind of looked like a V-band flange. So I got it back from him and I put it back in the box. Lo and behold, that was our missing fire ring this whole time that was causing the major boost leak on this car. Now, not only is a boost leak bad because I'm not getting the full potential out of this that I want to, and I thought it was rather slow, it cost a lot of money to get to this point, and I wasn't satisfied with how slow 5 pounds felt. But it also makes the turbo spin more and produce way more than 10 pounds of boost just to be able to keep up with all that boost that's getting bled off. So it really wasn't a good ordeal, and I would say that our Go Fast Bits wastegate was the most trickiest part of this equation. Partly on me because I forgot the firing ring and I didn't know that they had BSP fittings. But at this point, we did our first tuning session and we were still at 5 pounds. Then it ended up getting resolved. Traction bar works mint, car tracks dead straight, and I couldn't be happier with this build. And now that the main event is over, it didn't end there for this car in the 2024 season. That was the main bulk of our 2024 build, was just getting this car to be boosted, but we still did more things. As we all know, I have a terrible tiger stripe roof from when we took it upon ourselves to paint the car after our wrap job completely failed. I messed up painting the roof. The cans didn't like being held like this when they weren't full, which resulted in a tiger striped roof. We tried to wrap it once upon a time, wrap came damaged and it wasn't quite big enough. So we did it again and the roof is completely gloss black now, although it is kind of bubbling up and I don't know. The roof is the bane of my existence on this car, I'll tell you that. Not only did we wrap the roof, we ended up deleting the Circuit Hero shift plate and putting a real Alcantara shift boot back in it because it was an auto to manual swap, and when you would look through the shift plate, because it gives a lot of space to see through the shifter, it just didn't look right. So we ended up putting a shift boot back on the car. And another thing that we did that's arguably one of my favorite things, we fixed all this lighting on this car a few years ago, but one last thing that never worked was the reverse lights. Come to find out, it was because of the auto to manual swap, and when the owners that did it before me, they did all the physical pieces and none of the wiring. I tracked down the wiring, we soldered it in place, my first time soldering ever, and lo and behold, our dang reverse lights work like a charm. One of the biggest burdens on this car that I have faced, and it really proves a big issue at car meets and car shows because I packed some goodies and my camera bag in the trunk. When you go to open the hatch glass, the struts were blown and the strut mounts were stripped out. So I bought new struts, and guess what? They didn't work because the actual mounts in the glass were stripped out. So finally, after 6 years of ownership of having to hold up the strut glass on this car, we finally have new mounts and struts, and now the hatch glass holds itself up, which is honestly, like, we did the turbo and everything. I'm most excited that my hatch glass holds itself back up. That is a huge, huge win for me. I was so excited to finally get that complete. Also, a little bit of an issue we ran into when we did the Yonaka Rad Slim Fan Mishimoto silicone hoses and replaced all 3 coolant temp sensors is the fact that my carpet was getting a little wet in the passenger footwell. Pull it back, and what's leaking? The dang heater core. After we filled up, primed, purged, bled the cooling system, after our first start, everything was good to go. It was leaking under my dash out the heater core, which prompted us to do a heater core bypass because the only time I'd ever use the heater in this car is if it was overheating. With it turbo, I kind of wish I did have my heater so I could suck some heat out of it when I'm ripping down a back road in the hot summer. But once again, that's not really gonna matter in 2025. But I wasn't about to rip the dash out and put a whole new heater core in it, so we just went and got a universal line, capped it ourselves, and all was good to go. With all that being said and done, a full turbo kit on this car, wrapping the roof, fixing the hood struts, putting a shift boot instead of the shift plate in it, wiring in the boost gauge, and getting this tuned, jumping the hurdles of our boost leak and things like that. This car was officially done for 2024, and that's basically how it sat for the rest of 2024. Now heading into 2025, I have huge, huge life plans. Unfortunately, I just can't talk about it yet. I will be able to talk about it soon, but there may or may not be a new place, maybe new cars, you never know. One big thing I do want to do with this car, because I think it's more true to taste for Hondas, is going back to naturally aspirated. The most fun I ever had in this car was when it was an NA B16 full bolt-on tuned. I could rip it down a back road any temperature, any time of the day, any season, and it would eat it up like it's absolutely nothing. With it boosted, it's a ton of fun, but that traction bar on the front really limits the front angle and the front control arms being able to pivot around a corner and really dive in and grip. It really locks them in place. So even when you take a corner going the speed limit, your tires chirp going around that corner. Traction bars really made it to track dead straight. Now, if I were to take it off, I would just get a lot of torque steer and have to drive around it, which is completely fine. But with it being boosted, being so loud, so obnoxious, it's fun, it gets the heart rate going, it's fast, it'll beat a lot of cars on the road, but I just can't beat on it 24/7. This isn't a daily driver, so when it comes out to have fun. And when it was NA, I could take it out and I could put my foot to the floor the entire trip, hours on end, blasting down back roads, and it was incredible amounts of fun. With this car, you can almost do that, but you can't quite do that. What I mean by that really is that when you would take this down a back road, no matter the temperature, after a handful of boost pulls, the ECT is just going to get up there, and there's nothing you can really do about that. You just have to back off and let the car cool down. I have big fans, I have silicone hoses, I have a low temp thermostat. My fans are on a switch so I can turn them on more than they would be turning on by themselves, and it still just gets hot. Even with the heat wrap and everything, it helped. And it's good. You can drive this car. You can hit boost. You can have fun, but you can't just do it 24/7 like you could when it was NA. And I think that is my biggest gripe and why I'm longing for that NA life back so bad. But don't forget, there's also K-Series out there, so that might be coming in the new year. I don't want to talk too much about that. This is a look back at 2024 video. And before I go ahead and wrap up this segment, I have one last thing to talk about and thank you guys for. Now I'm going to get a little bit closer for this segment because really, I need to thank you guys. 2024 was our biggest, most pivotal year on this channel by a mile. We almost hit 1 million views. We're at 850,000 views. One of my Vlogmas shorts got 340,000 views. It was absolutely insane. We got monetized this year, and in this year alone, I've gained over 800 subscribers, which is crazy because it took me 5 years to gain 800 subscribers, and we just gained that in 1 year. We gained all of 800 subscribers that took us 5 years to get before. We gained almost 500,000 views on top of what was already on the channel. And let me just tell you boys, it's been an exciting year. Not only the subscribers, the views, getting monetized, things like that, we also got our first sponsored video. Oxido sent us out a set of headlights for this car for us to do a review on. And that was my first time ever with a company ever sending me anything for free for review, unbiased and things like that. It was absolutely mind-boggling and super eye-opening. So I wanted to do a Vlogmas to end off 2024 strong with a goal in mind of uploading more in 1 month than I ever have before. And I'm happy to report we did end up hitting our goal. Our record number of uploads in 1 month is 10 uploads, and that's with a minor overlap that I included. It should really be 9, but let's just say 10 for easy math. 10 uploads in 1 month is a lot between shorts and videos. We beat that in Vlogmas. Not by a mile, but we did it. We got 12 uploads this month, which is the record for the YouTube channel. I got sick and took a trip 10 hours away, and I was still able to squeeze out more content in 1 month than we've ever done before in the 5 years of this channel. 10 uploads. We got 4 long form videos out for you guys, and we had 8 YouTube shorts, and a lot of those YouTube shorts did really, really well. Especially that one, they got 340,000 views. Absolutely unbelievable. So thank you guys so much. Without your guys' support, following, and continued viewership, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. I do this for you guys as much as I do it for me. And without anyone watching my videos, commenting, liking, gaining new subscribers, there's no point to it really. So with you guys and your continuous support, the more you give, the more you get, and vice versa. The more I see traction on the channel, the more I'm gonna put out better content, better builds, cooler cars, and things like that. So thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it. 2024 has been a crazy year, and I can tell you one thing for certain. 2025 is only ramping up. 2024 was just the beginning. It took us 5 years to get to the beginning, and 2025 is going to blow 2024 out of the water. Big life plans, big changes, and I think it's going to be absolutely unreal. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but don't you guys worry. I will be right back. I'm not going anywhere. This car is not going anywhere. Brash Garage isn't going anywhere. We're coming back in 2025, bigger and better than ever. And I hope in the next video, I have more information to tell you guys and shed some light on what 2025 holds. Right now, I don't really have the liberty to do that, but very soon. So keep your eyes peeled on the channel. Turn on the notifications. I hope you like to look back at 2024, and we'll see you guys in 2025. Peace out.